Welcome, everyone, to the Obtuse Angles Wrestling Podcast with Kyle and Jeremy, or I should say just Kyle this week because Jeremy is out. He is sick, but hey, when you hook up with random dudes off Craigslist, you're going to expect some consequences, and that is exactly what Jeremy is reaping this week. He is going to be so pissed about that. I am so jacked about this week's episode and next week's episode because I recently had the chance over the phone to do an interview with the Patriot, Dale Wilkes. He wrestled in AWA, Global Wrestling, All Japan, WCW, WWF, main evented a WWF pay-per-view against Bret Hart, and then his career ended just like that. We're going to be talking about that, and more importantly, and perhaps more interestingly, his stint in prison and all of the issues that he dealt with as it pertains to pills, painkillers. This is an intense interview, a different change of pace from what we usually do. Don't worry, we're going to be back to the wacky, ridiculous hijinks in a couple of weeks after this interview is done. But the Patriot, Dale Wilkes, he's dealt with so much and he's overcome so much. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about the next couple of weeks. We've broken down this interview into two parts. First part, you're about ready to hear. The second part will air next week right here. Before we get to that up front, though, got to tell you, at Obtuse Podcast on Twitter, please subscribe to that for all of the information on this podcast, all of the interviews we have coming up. Also, like the Facebook page, the Obtuse Angles Wrestling Facebook page, and subscribe to us on iTunes. For the love of God, this is the little podcast that could, man. I can't think of another small podcast that gets the guests that we do, that puts in the work that we do, and it shows. And thank you for all of your support. Please tell your friends. So without further ado, we're going to go to the interview right now from South Carolina, I should say North Carolina, as I'm about to find out, and you'll hear the Patriot, Dale Wilkes. All right, Dale Wilkes, the Patriot. So very excited about this ever since we announced this, ever since we set this up earlier this week, man. I've just been absolutely jacked. Dale, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Are you at home in South Carolina right now?
Actually, I'm in North Carolina. Visiting my wife's sister and her daughter. And so we're just spending the day with them. And we're actually in Morganton, North Carolina.
Well, very nice, man. Very nice. Now, I know I just listened to your interview on Stone Cold's podcast, which, by the way, if you've not heard that, go check that out. Absolutely amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get a hold of you, not just because of your amazing career, but also because you have had such an interesting run, both inside the squared circle, in the business, and then I think especially when you got out and everything that you've been able to overcome. If you don't mind, I think we could just start back at the beginning of your career for a brief bit. You started in the AWA, right?
Well, yeah, that's where I got my first big break, was the AWA. I actually started, training at a school in my hometown of Columbia, South Carolina. Worked a lot of independent stuff, outlaw stuff. Ended up spending some time in Mid-South with Jarrett and Lawler. But yeah, my first big break was AWA.
Now, that was one of my favorite gimmicks, by the way, man, because you were a trooper, right? You would beat guys, then you'd write them a ticket.
Yeah, Greg Gagne came up with the idea, and that was... we were on ESPN Monday through Friday from 4 to 5 o'clock, and of course that was at the end of the AWA, as it was battling to stay afloat and keep the doors open. But they came up with the idea of the trooper, looked like a highway patrolman with the hat, the belt, the flashlight, the handcuffs, and on my way to the ring, I'm handing out badges to the kids. And then after the match, I write my opponent a ticket and leave it on their forehead or chest.
Now, can I tell you that as a kid, I would come home every day and turn on ESPN, and I would watch you. And I remember I wanted so badly for you to hand me one of those badges.
That was the great thing about that time spot. And later I was able to work that same time spot with Global on ESPN from 4 to 5 o'clock, because as you just said, that's when most kids are getting home from school. They're finishing up homework, and they've got a chance to sit down 5 days a week, turn the TV on, turn it to ESPN, and there you've got, some of your favorite professional wrestling stars.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you, when I stumbled across AWA and then later Global, because I was raised on, WWF and then the NWA, I didn't even know that there was a show on, right? And then I come home and I'm flipping the channels and I go, oh, my gosh, there's wrestling 5 days a week? Like, that was heaven for me.
Oh, yeah. You better believe it. I mean, what a better thing. That's like, cake and ice cream together. At the end of a school day, you're done with homework. You can sit there and watch wrestling for an hour, Monday through Friday. It was, I've had so many people tell me that, so many fans come up and say, hey, man, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, the same thing. I got home from school and tuned into ESPN and watched you as the Trooper or watched you as the Patriot.
Unbelievable. Now, so you went to Global, like you said. That was also on ESPN. That's where the Patriot character came in, right?
It was. I actually flew out to Dallas. They were going to make Dallas their headquarters, and when I say they, I'm talking about the Global Wrestling Federation, and use the historic Sportatorium as the Global Dome. That's where we filmed all of our TV shows for ESPN. And so when I flew out for the very first television taping that Global would ever do, I flew out with my Trooper gear. I had no idea that I was going to do anything but that. And literally just a few hours before we were to head over to the Sportatorium and tape what would be Global's first TV show ever, Bill Eadie and Joe Pedicino, the two guys that were running Global, called me over to Joe's hotel room. We were all staying at the same hotel there in Dallas, and they shared an idea with me. They literally pulled the red, white, and blue tights, the red, white, and blue trunks, and a red, white, and blue mask out of a costume box that they had brought to Dallas with them. And it was there that afternoon that they presented to me the idea of a patriotic character that they thought would really, really do well based on the political situation that we were in at the time. We had gone into Kuwait. Our military had to liberate Kuwait where Saddam Hussein had gone in and occupied Kuwait. So naturally, patriotism's at a high level. They thought it would be a great time for a patriotic character, and right they were.
Now, what did you think when they presented this idea to you? Were you on board from the start, or in the back of your mind were you thinking, I don't know if this will work, this might be a little, because obviously it went on to be one of the greatest wrestling characters ever, but initially did you think, I don't know, that might be a little much?
I'll tell you what gave me just a slight bit of hesitation is they were literally pulling the gear out of this costume box that they had brought with them. Here come the trunks, here come the tights, here comes the mask. There was a red, white, and blue vest in there. And then the thing that really made me go, whoa, I don't know if I can do this, was they pulled out one of those Abe Lincoln smokestack hats, one of those 3-foot-tall hats, and it was red, white, and blue, sort of an Uncle Sam-looking hat. And that's when I had some, I don't know, guys. I said, I tell you what we'll do. I said, I'm all in under one condition. We leave that hat in the box. If we can do that, I'm in. And, of course, everybody had a big laugh, and we left the hat in the box.
Do you think they were ribbing you with the hat, or did they really want you to go out there wearing that hat?
Well, I don't think they were ribbing me. Well, Joe's wife, Bonnie Blackstone, was there with us, and of course, she had a lot to do with Global and just the the way things were being done in Global, and it was actually her idea for that hat. So I don't think it was a rib. I just think it was something that Bonnie thought would go good with the character. But fortunately, I was able to talk everybody into leaving that thing in the box where it belonged. Now,
correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time that you worked under a hood at that point, right?
No, actually, I hadn't. That seems to be sort of a constant theme throughout my career. When I first broke into the business in Columbia, I trained at the Fabulous Mullahs School in Columbia, South Carolina, my hometown. The guy that I broke into business together with, a buddy of mine also from South Carolina, she put us under hoods, and we were called the Masked Grapplers.
Oh, okay.
And then later on when I went to Mid-South to work with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, there were a lot of good guys there that would also later on have great careers. Mark was there, who later would become The Undertaker. Sid Vicious was there. Scotty Steiner, Brian Lee, Tracy Smothers. And they teamed. Lawler had the idea of teaming Scott Steiner and I up together. And he put us under white hoods, and we were called the Wrestling Machines. So actually, this was probably about the third or fourth time I'd worn a mask.
Wow. Now, see, I never worked under a hood, but I've always heard, from so many guys who have done it, that you have to change so much. Obviously, you can't express, you can't sell, you can't express your emotions facially, so you have to do, you have to sell more with your body, right? Was that an adjustment for you doing that?
Yeah, you really do. You have to almost over-exaggerate and oversell with your body, with your, with your head and with your arms and with your legs. And, you almost, have to just get into that mindset of really over-exaggeration because, as you said, the people can't see your face. They can't see any type of emotion. That's why, as the Patriot, when I would fire a comeback, I would really use body language and beat my chest and run in one place and bounce my legs up and down and just, pump my fist up in the air because they can't see your face. So it's so important that they see emotion through your body and your body language.
Now, see, I wasn't aware of the fact that that's like the third time in your career that you wore a mask. Here's my question. You're a good-looking guy. Did you ever think to yourself, do they think I'm ugly? Why do all these people keep putting me under hoods?
Yeah, it's like that old saying, a face made for TV. Evidently, I had one made for a mask because there was one other character I did, and I did it in Mid-South as well. When I first got to Mid-South, Lawler had the idea of putting me under a hood, and they called me the Dream Weaver, and my finish was a sleeper hold. And that didn't get over too well, so then he had the idea of putting Steiner and I together, and he put both of us under hoods as the Wrestling Machine. So actually, the Patriot was the fourth time I had worked under a hood.
Now, I think that also what that is a testament to your body, though, man. I mean, you were so jacked, maybe the idea was putting you under those hoods constantly showed off even more of your physique.
Well, you may be right. I've never thought of it that way, but that is a good point. I had worked very hard, in the gym and was very strict with my diet and my eating and just had a real strict regimen there of trying to look good. I've often made the point, when you make a living without a shirt night after night after night, it pays to look good. And I worked very hard and trying to achieve that particular look.
Well, now, it obviously shows, and I know this is going to be jumping ahead quite a bit here for just a second, but I got to ask this, and this is one question that I haven't heard anybody ask you, and there's been a little bit of debate over this online. You obviously know right now, I believe it's still going on, that Salvador Sincere, guy that worked in WWF for a number of years, is performing your gimmick. He's the Patriot independently now. Did you sell that gimmick to him? Because from what I've heard, he claims you did, and then I've heard before that you said you didn't. What's the situation with that?
No, emphatically no. I have talked to I've talked to him one time in probably the last 25 years, and when I was working in All Japan for Mr. Baba, Brandy came over and did one, maybe two tours at the most with us, and I didn't even realize this until looking at something that someone had sent me recently. When I was in the WWF at the end of my career, I actually worked in a battle royal with Tom then, and I'd forgotten about that. But that's the only conversation that I've had with Tom in the last 20 years. I didn't sell him anything. He has just taken it upon himself to go out and work as the Patriot. It's just basically identity theft. Now, let me take it a step further and tell you how far he's gone with this. He takes pictures of me, not pictures of Tom dressed up as me, but pictures of me and sells them at shows. He did a shoot DVD a few years back. Now, why? I don't know. Who would, I thought you had to have some sort of a career for somebody to want to do a shoot DVD on you. But he did one, and he took a picture of me, and that was used as the cover of that DVD, and even further than that. He's taken my bio. I saw it on the internet where he actually took my career and attached it to his, and just used my career to enhance what he's not done. And I've communicated with a lot of fans over the course of the last few months, last year and a half, 2 years, and fans who were suspicious and went to shows where the Patriot was actually working. And in their suspicion, either before or after the show, they've approached Tom and asked this particular question: "Are you Del Wilkes?" And the answer they got back was, yeah, I'm Dale Wilkes. He's sitting there with a hood on.
Are
so
you
how do they
kidding
know?
me? Oh, my God. I mean, but it's 2015. I mean, it's not like it was back in the 80s. I mean, the internet's everywhere. You could Google you could Google Tom, you could see it, but he's still doing that.
Oh, yeah. That's I've been the best thing that's happened to Tom's career, evidently.
I mean, see, I was not aware that it went that far. I mean, I thought that he just stole your gimmick, but this goes beyond stealing your gimmick. I mean, he's stealing your accomplishments. He's stealing everything that you accomplished just in order to make a buck. That's awful.
Yeah, it is. It's pathetic, and it really, I was telling somebody the other day, and I've discussed this with a lot of people and a lot of the fans and a lot of the guys in the business and friends of mine that I worked with. You're probably the same way. I would have more pride about me. I've got more pride about me than to do that. I would want to stand on my own accomplishments, a character that I took and was able to get over with the wrestling fans. I mean, I'd be ashamed of myself if I had to go out every time I worked and pretend to be someone that I'm not. I've just got more pride about me than to do something like that.
Well, clearly he doesn't have a problem with that. But, at the same time, though, you're doing well for yourself now. So I just wanted to set the record straight there. That's so very interesting. And so I guess if you see Salvador Sincere, Tom Brandi on a card somewhere, don't buy a ticket to that show because that is not Dale Wilkes.
Well, I have repeated this, and I will today as I'm talking to you. There is one surefire way you can tell it's not me. I haven't been in a ring but one time since the year 2000. I've worked one match in the last 15 years. I had to retire because of serious injuries, and I am physically unable to get into a ring and work. So if you see somebody in a ring working a match and they're calling themselves a Patriot, that right there tells you it's not Dale Wilkes.
Absolutely. Well, now you mentioned a couple of seconds ago that you worked for Baba in Japan, and that's where you went after GWF, right, in 92?
That's correct, yes.
What was that like? Because, I mean, I imagine that going from GWF to All Japan at that time, there's a very different, it's a very big change in styles, right? Much more physical, especially at that time. The strong style?
It was a much more, Baba did phenomenal business, and that company did phenomenal business. As a matter of fact, I mean, I worked for WCW, WWF, Global, AWA. I worked for all the major promotions that were in existence during my time, and I worked for no company that did the type of business Baba did. We sold out close to 200 consecutive shows in Tokyo. Everywhere we went was sellouts. It was just phenomenal, the business we did and the crowds that we drew and the TV ratings, and it was all done based on in-ring action. Our TV show was an hour long. There were no promos. There were no interviews. Every match had a clean finish. There were no managers. There were no valets. There was no outside interferences. There were no double DQs. There were no countouts. Every match had a clean finish. And one night, let's just say, for instance, Johnny Ace and I were tag team partners. One night, Ace and I may be working for the tag team belts. The next night, Ace and I are working against each other. So I think it was that type of business where tickets were sold, people watched our show, people came to the live shows based on what went on inside those ropes, and it was great wrestling action. But as a result of that, it was a more physical style, it was a more stiff style. But I came from a football background, so I loved it. I loved it, and I loved it.
I was just saying, absolutely. I mean, and you were a very accomplished football player, but talking about how different it was in Japan, because it seems like it's more that way today, but it's also kind of moved away today in Japan. Today, there are promos, there is stuff like that, but going back to it then, it's just so interesting to me because, wrestling now, but especially back then, was covered in the sports pages. I mean, it would make the cover of the sports pages. You're not going to see that in America. You didn't see that in America back then, and especially not now. So I just find it so interesting that he did so much business with a pure physicality. And really, I think that would you agree that it is more of an art form in that way because you have to tell a story inside those ropes as opposed to on a microphone?
Oh, absolutely. You're 100% spot on. And I'll tell you another thing that allowed us to have the type of success that we did. When you look at the roster of talent and the lineup of talent that worked for Baba, let's say from the late 80s through probably about 2000, just to throw out a few names of the guys that I worked with on a regular basis, 28, 30 weeks a year working for Baba. Stan Hansen, Terry Gordy, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Johnny Ace, Doug Furness, Danny Prophet, Dory Funk Jr., Abdullah the Butcher, sprinkle in Ted DiBiase from the British Bulldog, Davy Boy Smith, my tag team partner Jackie Fulton, his brother Bobby Fulton, Tommy Rogers. And then you go to the Japanese side, Giant Baba, Jumbo Tsuruta, Masawa, Kawada, Kabashi, Kawe, Akiyama. And you see why we were able to do the business that we did. And Andre actually came and worked tours with us, as well. So when you've got that kind of roster, that kind of lineup, that kind of talent, and you couple it with the work rate that we had and the style of business, it was just phenomenal.
Now,
I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, I can't. The amount of names that you just rattled off there is absolutely amazing to me. A few of those guys you mentioned: Stan Hansen, Kenta Kobashi, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. I mean, notorious for being some of the stiffest guys ever to step inside of the ring. And you say that you loved it because you were a football player. You loved that physical style. Who do you think was the stiffest guy you ever worked? And did you ever work a match where somebody hit you so hard, even you went, whoa? All right, man, hold up.
Well, all those guys worked stiff and snug, but nothing that I would say was out of bounds. We were out there trying to make it look as believable and as real as possible, but at the same time, take care of each other and protect each other. Now, you asked a question, who's the stiffest guy I ever worked with? The stiffest guy that I ever worked with was Vader, but I'll tell you why Vader was that way. Vader was a real nervous type guy before a match, and he was just tense. He was as tight as all get out. So just through his inability to relax and lighten up a little bit, especially early on in a match, he could lay them in. But all you had to do was lay it right back into him, and he would loosen up a little bit as well as the match started to flow and progress. But all those guys I worked with in Japan, we just were accustomed. That was the way we did things, and it had to look believable. But I will say this, as a result of that style, it obviously, I know for a fact, at least as far as I'm concerned, it shortened my career because it did lead to a series of injuries that eventually cost me my career. So while it was good and I enjoyed it, there was a bad side to that as well, and it did cost me time and years off my career.
Now, you mentioned that you worked, I don't know if you worked with, but you were at least in the same promotion as Andre the Giant. I want to get to that in just a second, but I also want to say this. You're talking about working stiff. You're talking about adjusting to the Japanese style. Next you go to WCW. Did you have, was it a little bit of a shock in the sense that, did you come into WCW working a little bit too stiff for them, or were they fine with it too, coming from Japan?
No, I think I was able to adapt to wherever I was at and to the style that was needed. And of course, I realized that I was back in America where guys just they weren't accustomed to, the type of work that I'd been around for the last several years. So I was able to come in and I think very quickly and very easily adjust to everything or going back to that American style of doing things. So I didn't have any complaints from anybody.
So, Andre the Giant, every time we've had somebody on the show who has worked with him, we had Brutus Beefcake on the show. I asked Brutus about this. I got to ask you because, you're living the clean and sober life now. You're in great shape, but obviously, and we're going to get to this in just a little bit, you like to go party back in the day. And I'm not sure if you did this back in Japan, but I'm sure that you went out to the bar with Andre maybe a couple times. Are the legends true? Could he really drink over 100 beers in one setting?
Absolutely, and I have, in fact, been out with Andre before in Japan to nightclubs. But it started way before that. It was customary in Japan that our show started at 6:30 every night, and we would get to the building around 3:30 at the latest 4 o'clock, and everything would be set up. And so, we've got 3 hours to kill before bell time. You're going over your matches, you're working out. They always had weight equipment that they would bring with them. And Andre would play cards. And he could drink 4 bottles of wine before he ever walked to the ring playing cards. And there was always somebody from the office there, or one of the ring crew, or somebody that would sit down and play cards with Andre. So typically by the time he got to the ring, Andre had, he'd already poured down 3 or 4 bottles of wine.
Oh.
And then after the show, he could easily drink 100 beers in excess of if he wanted to.
That's unbelievable. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Did you ever see one of the famous cases people have talked about of Andre passing out and nobody being able to pick him up?
Yes, it happened one night in a hotel in Japan, and I don't remember the city, but he was out in the lobby, and so they just brought out sheets and just laid sheets over him and let him sleep it off because you weren't going to wake him up, you weren't going to get him up. I mean, you'd have had to bring in farm equipment to get the man up. So, yeah, they just throw some sheets over him and let him sleep it off, and whenever the big man wanted to get up and go to his room, that's what the big man did.
Well, not just that, but I mean, you would, even if you could wake him up, you would literally be waking the sleeping giant.
Yes, you would. And I do want to say this, too, because I don't want to make it sound like that Andre was some hapless alcoholic. Andre dealt with things that us, and I'm a big guy, but he dealt with things that us as normal people didn't have to deal with. You imagine when you're over 7 foot tall, you're 500 pounds, there's nothing, and I mean nothing, made to accommodate you. It doesn't matter how big the seats are on the airplane. They're not made to accommodate someone that big. Hotel rooms, taxi cabs, rental cars. And as he got older and later in his career, his body starting to fail him. He's in tremendous, tremendous pain. He's outlived any life expectancy that he was given as a teenager when it was discovered that he had this disease that would make him grow like that. They told him he wouldn't make it out of his 20s. He made it to 46, I think. But his body is just racked with pain, and he hurts everywhere he goes. There's no place he can get comfortable. So Andre had to deal with things that none of us can imagine. It was just, sure. I felt bad for him. I really did. And he was such a sweetheart of a guy, too. He never complained. He never fussed. He never let on that he was hurt, but he had to live like that. That was life for Andre the Giant.
Well, and from what I've heard from so many people as well, one of the reasons why Andre would drink the way that he did was to manage the pain. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
To be a guy that big, like you said, 500 pounds, 7'4", whatever. I mean, there's not a whole lot that he could take that would, let him get out of bed in the morning.
No, you think 2 Vicodins is going to help that guy get out of pain? No, absolutely not. So, that was one of his ways of dealing with it and just being able to function and live somewhat pain-free.
Now, we're talking, the crazy times with Andre the Giant. There's one story that you mentioned on Austin's podcast, and if you could just, and if you just want to tell it briefly for me, I would appreciate that. The story of you and Wahoo McDaniel, you went out to a show one night. The promoter refused to pay you, and Wahoo decided to get a little street justice. Am I remembering this correctly?
Absolutely. Wahoo was probably the biggest influence on my career. I met him very early in the infant stages of my career. He came to Columbia and worked on one of Moolah's shows and just took a liking to me. And I think it was that football background that we both had in common. And he literally just took me under his wing. And for several years, wherever Wahoo worked, he made sure I got booked and worked there as well. So we spent a lot of time on the road together. And one of the things that Wahoo told me, because we worked a lot of independent shows, we worked a lot of outlaw shots with these outlaw promoters. And one thing he told me that I didn't even share this on Austin's podcast was always take a gun with you because you never knew when you were going to have to get your money at gunpoint. And on this particular night, we had been up in Ohio. I think we'd been up there maybe 10 days working a series of shows for this independent promoter, and he was supposed to pay us at the end of the loop. He had it was in his hometown, and they'd sold a bunch of tickets ahead of time, and they was expecting good walk-up traffic as well, and it was a full house, and it was a high school gymnasium, and it was packed. Don't know how many people were there, but it was packed, and nobody can find the promoter. He's gone. He's disappeared. He's taken the money box, and he's hightailed it out of the building. And Wahoo got everybody together and told us that we were, in fact, going to go out and put on a show for these people that had paid their hard-earned money to watch us perform. And nobody was leaving the building without working. Didn't matter if we weren't going to get paid. That wasn't the fault of the people that bought the tickets. And so after the show was over, we showered and we got in Wahoo's Bronco. And Wahoo powdered his nose, had a couple of drinks, and off we went to the promoter's house. And we get there, and the guy won't answer the door. And Wahoo's standing on the front door steps with a pistol in his hand, banging on the door. He's wanting his money. And the guy calls the cops from inside the house. The cops show up. Cooler heads prevail. They didn't do anything to Wahoo, just put the gun up, get back out of town. Sorry you lost your money, sir, but there's nothing we can do to help you. And you certainly can't take it at gunpoint. But that wasn't the only time I saw Wahoo do something like that. So, Wahoo would give out Wahoo justice. He was a good man, but he was quick-tempered. He had a volatile kind of temperament about him, and he just wasn't going to stand by and let people do him that way. So, interesting guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's a different time. I mean, all right. We're going to stop the interview right there. We're going to come back next week with part 2 of our interview with the Patriot, Del Wilkes. He's going to talk about finally making it to the WWF, main eventing a pay-per-view against Bret Hart, and then just like that, as quickly as he got there, his career is over from injuries. We're also going to talk about his struggles with addiction, his run in prison in South Carolina, if he thought that there was a target on his back, and how he was able to turn his whole life around. Now, we were not able to promote this on this week's show, so I'm going to go ahead and do this because I want you to check this out. DellThePatriotWilkes.com. That is the website to go to pick up the documentary called Behind the Mask, Del the Patriot Wilkes. He talks about all of the stuff he talks about in both of these interviews and so much more. Once again, such an inspiring story, and I want to say thank you once again to the Patriot, Del Wilkes. Trust me, you'll want to come back next week and check out part 2 of the interview. One more time, at obtusepodcast.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, and we will see you back here next week for part 2 of the interview for Jeremy Sutherland, who is recovering from the nastiest case of chlamydia anyone's ever seen. That's a joke, folks. I'm Kyle Fields. We will see you guys next week. Goodbye, everybody.